previously on most industry-shaking coasters. The evolution has picked up drastically since opening of Kings Island's Racer back in 1972, and ever since then there's been a massive influx of roller coasters and really amusement rides as a whole. Things really picked up in 1975 when the world's first successful inverting coaster opened at Knott's Berry Farm. While the Mindbender accident in 1986 may have changed the industry forever, there weren't many new coasters that year that could say the same. The most notable one was probably Shockwave at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This was an Intamin stand-up that would be Intamin's first traditional inverting coaster, and it would have an
Look at the top of his head! Look at his lips!
In 1999, we saw another B&M first, and that was the first B&M Hyper Apollo's Chariot. Anyway, that's about going to wrap up part 1, so stay tuned for part 2 when I reveal whether I choose Son of the Beast or Millennium Force for the year 2000. Moving into the new Millennium, I have a bit of a surprise pick. You probably thought I'd pick Millennium Force because it's literally Millennium Force, but my pick is actually going to be Son of the Beast. I decided to choose this because Son of the Beast I think affected the industry in more ways than Millennium Force. First of all, it was the first wooden coaster ever to surpass 200 feet and is still to this day the tallest and fastest wooden coaster that ever existed. It was 78.4 miles an hour if you were wondering. Along with that, the ride surpassed 7,000 feet in length, giving Kings Island two 7,000 plus foot long woodies in the same park. But along with that, Son of the Beast became the first wooden roller coaster in the modern era to feature an inversion, and the only one to this day to have a vertical loop. Plus, the ride managed to break multiple people's backs and necks. Now that is impressive. For 2001, my pick is King's Dominion's Hypersonic XLC. There's just so many things that could be said about this. It was the first coaster to utilize a compressed air launch system, a big reason why it was able to also claim the record for the fastest acceleration, going 0 to 80 miles per hour in just 1.8 seconds. What's even more impressive though is that it was the first ever roller coaster built by S&S. A lot of manufacturers start by going with something a little smaller, but S&S was like, nah, bang bang boom. In 2002, Aerodynamics would try to make one last push into glory with the opening of X, the first fourth dimension roller coaster in history. However, the massive price of the project pushed Aero even further into bankruptcy, and this time they would not recover. But just because Aero was becoming more and more obsolete, that doesn't mean that other companies were. Intamin was going stronger than ever when they teamed up with Cedar Point to build Thrill Dragster. Dragster was the first coaster to be built that actually reaches 400 feet, 420 to be exact. I mean, I guess it has to reach that height unless there's a rollback. But they also went for that speed record by making the ride 20 miles per hour faster than Superman the Escape. And the launch is much crazier too, with this one getting to the max speed in just 4 seconds. In 2004, there wasn't much of anything that was groundbreaking, but I guess I'll go with Storm Runner because it had and still has one of the quickest accelerations in the world. In 2005, I could have gone a couple ways, but I decided to choose Hades at Mount Olympus theme park. This was the first coaster ever built by Gravity Group, the king of family woodies nowadays, though they have some really great thrilling ones in there like this. Around 2005 was when a major shift was made in the wooden coaster industry, I'd say to make them more of the smoothish, airtime filled ones that we know today. Plus, 8 years later, Hades would also go on to be the first wooden coaster to feature a corkscrew, something that can be found on other rides like Mindbender these days. Most people probably would have chosen King to Ka for 2005, but I did not because it may have broken records, but it wasn't really anything that new because Thrill Dragster already existed. For 2006, I went with El Toro, the Intamin prefab that opened at Six Flags Great Adventure. It may not have been the first Intamin prefab, but it did, in my opinion, pioneer that insane type of ejector airtime-filled wooden/hybrid coaster that RMC has mastered these days. In fact, RMC actually constructed El Toro, so maybe they took some notes. Intamin was back at it in 2007 when Maverick opened at Cedar Point. Maverick featured the steepest drop on any roller coaster in America at 95 degrees. This was also the first Intamin Blitz coaster, and 10 of these have been built so far, 9 of which are in my opinion top 100 roller coasters in the world. You can definitely call it a successful model. 2008 saw the opening of Steel Hawg at Indiana Beach, the first S&S El Loco and actually the newest coaster at Indiana Beach to this day. Steel Hawg completely obliterated the record for world's steepest coaster with its 111 degree drop, 24 more degrees, and it would be considered an inversion by RCDB. 2009 was another year in which the coaster I picked may not have been the best, but it was definitely the most important. That ride was Bluefire Megacoaster at Europa Park. Before Bluefire, Mach was just seen as that meh coaster manufacturer that makes family coasters a mile and less, and also runs Europa Park. That meant that it came as a bit of a shock to coaster enthusiasts when they announced a foreign version launch coaster. But hey, it was a success, and these thrill coasters have been the new face of the company. For 2010, I should mention Formula Rossa, the ride that broke the speed record traveling 149 miles per hour, but the ride that I'm actually going to pick is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. It didn't break any records, but was the first Giga Coaster since Millennium Force 10 years prior. But the big reason why this was so important is because it's really the ride that soured the relationship between Cedar Fair and Intamin. Since 2010, there's not been a single new Intamin coaster to any Cedar Fair park, essentially knocking Intamin out of the American market, as they're also too expensive for Six Flags. Something that is not too expensive for Six Flags though are Rocky Mountain Construction Hybrid Coasters, and the first one opened in 2011 under the name of New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas. We all know RMC for their ejector airtime machines, and this was the first one. I also credit RMC as a big reason why Six Flags is able to make somewhat of a comeback after their bankruptcy. RMC sells amazing coasters for an insanely cheap price, well, at least cheap for a roller coaster. 2012 brought us the first B&M Giga Coaster, Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. Now whenever a park wants a traditional Giga, they go to B&M, so it's important that this is where they got their start. The most industry-shaking coaster of 2013 for various reasons was Smiler at Alton Towers. Let's start with the positive. It was the first Gerstlauer Infinity coaster, and it shattered the inversion record with its 14. It's hard to imagine any roller coaster ever surpassing that. But about the negative, we all know what happened. Let's not get into it. In 2014, there wasn't a whole ton of innovation, but there was a big record breaker that opened in Goliath at Six Flags Great America. Goliath broke the record for tallest drop on a wooden roller coaster, 180 feet. It was the fastest wooden coaster, traveling 70 miles per hour. And finally, it was the steepest wooden coaster with that 85-degree drop. All this was possible because of RMC's innovative chopper track design. For 2015, my pick is just Furtus Canon. It didn't really bring much new, but it pretty much brought some of the best of everything. Amazing theming, maybe the best drop on Earth, a great score from Imascore, insane intensity, insane airtime, and much more. It's safe to say that many parks are going to take inspiration from Carnon. For 2016 though, there was one clear coaster that innovated like few coasters before it. That ride was Lightning Rod, the first launched wooden roller coaster in history. I'm not going to talk your ear off because we all know the insanity of Lightning Rod, but I will say that just 10 years ago, the idea of a launched wooden roller coaster was incomprehensible. 2017 was a down year in the United States, but definitely was not in other parts of the world. In 2017, Legendia opened the legendary Lech Coaster, one of our first looks into the future of Vekoma. 1 year prior, we did see Formula at Energylandia, but Lech just took it to a whole nother level. For 2018, the answer was pretty clear: RMC Raptors. RMC just completely took the concept of a roller coaster to the next level. One rail, just one, allowing for maneuvers never thought possible on a roller coaster. Plus, these things are almost dirt cheap for a major roller coaster, allowing for them to be available for small parks to get a world-class coaster. 2019 brought us the second hyper-hybrid coaster of all time, Zadra. That isn't the reason why I picked it. Zadra is also the first ever RMC hybrid coaster to be built from the ground up. That's probably going to be the face of the RMC hybrid coaster eventually, in my opinion. And finally, rounding out the video, I'm going to make a bit of a surprise pick in Hals-über Kopf at Tripstroll. This was the first of Vekoma's new gen inverted coaster model called the Suspended Throw Coaster, and I can tell you right now this is going to be a major success for Vekoma, as it gives you the same, maybe even better quality of a B&M invert at a much cheaper price. I'd be worried if I was B&M. And with that, we have gone through almost 50 years in the roller coaster industry. Now I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Remember to leave your thoughts, suggestions, and video ideas in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys later.